Hi, and welcome back. I'm Terry Burns, and this series of videos is on wordplay in John Dee's Monas Hieroglyphia, or the Hieroglyphic Monad of John Dee. I'm using the edition that Nancy Turner and I translated for Ouroboros Press. The link for that is below. But I'm going to do a little something different in this video, and I want to talk about what Dee does with his writing in the monad. If you understand it, it links you forward to the Enochian corpus years later that he writes down and is scribed by this guy, Sir Edward Kelly, who seems to be watching this whole presentation. Go figure. Let me share my screen here, and I will show you how Elementata will link us to the Enochian corpus. Okay. Elementata is a word in Latin that refers in medieval Latin to the first subdivision of the classical elements. It's used a lot in the 12th century. It's used by people like Roger Bacon, who is one of John Dee's heroes. So a lot of times it is mistakenly translated into English simply as element. In fact, in every translation of the Hieroglyphic Monad until the one that Dr. Turner and I did, it is mistakenly translated. Elementata is not an element. An element is an elementa. And this isn't what we think of with the periodic table of the elements. It is earth, air, fire, water, and ether. Usually you hear about the 4 elements because the ether is kind of a secret and it's connected to the dodecahedron. So you can talk about the 5 elements or the 5th element being the secret one, ether, but usually you hear about 4. So it's the first way they can be divided. If you want a scholarly exegesis of this, it was written before most of us were born, 1954 here by Silverstein, and he shows how 12th century Platonists and Hermeticists, including Roger Bacon, use Elementata. I don't know what the other translators thought this was. It's like that maybe Dee is just getting all ornate and he doesn't want to say elementa, so he says elementata. No, it's a different word. It means a different thing. So let me give you an example from Theorem 7. This is the way that Nancy and I translated it. Elements, elementa, elements that are removed from their natural habitation and whose homogeneous parts are from thence dislocated will teach an experimenter that they're naturally restored to their place by means of straight lines. Now, he's talking here about the cross of the elements and doing a transformation that will eventually lead to a pentagram out of the cross of the elements. Hey, anyone familiar with the Golden Dawn portal initiation? This is a source for it, Theorem 7. But this being restored by straight lines or turning into a pentagram crowning the cross of the elements is very interesting, but not what I'm talking about here now. Let's look at the next part. He says, accordingly, it will not seem absurd to insist that the mystery of the 4 elements into which each primary substance can ultimately resolve is intimated by the 4 straight lines that project out from a unique point into contrary directions. Okay, I will explain this whole theorem in a video in my class in John Dee's Hieroglyphic Monad. The playlist for that is below. But what I'm interested in is this primary substance. We translated it as primary substance, not element, because the word he's using is elementata. So let's go back to the usual 4 elements instead of 5 and see what this would give us. That means if you have the element of earth and it's going to divide up by mixing with the other 4 elements, right? So you get earth mixed with earth, which is earth, earth mixed with air, call it air of earth, with fire, fire of earth, water of earth. Now, so on through the classical elements. If you are familiar with Dee's Enochian work, you know right where I'm going. If you're not, it may not seem that significant. This is mainly intended for people who know something about Dee's Enochian work that comes with Edward Kelly 20 years later. So if you go on through the classical elements with fire, you get fire, water of fire, earth of fire, air of fire. Then with air, air and fire of air, water of air, earth of air, water, earth of water, air of water, fire of water. Okay, flash forward a couple of decades. What do you get? Well, this is the great table of earth. It is written with Roman letters standing in for Enochian letters here. And then it is often divided up into the 4 elements. A fancier modern version might look like this one that my husband Alan Moore did. That is Alan Moore, the Enochian magician, not the British graphic novelist, though yes, they are both bearded guys who like John Dee. Okay, usually this would be interpreted as the air tablet, the water tablet, the earth tablet, the fire tablet. And yes, I know there is a big discussion, and we can talk about it, and we'll talk about it in a later video about, gee, how do we know that this is the water tablet and that we also associate it with the West? And well, it depends on your frame of reference, and it's a whole nother discussion. What I want you to see now, and the only thing here, is these are the 4 elements. Now, what is this thing up here? Oh, that's the seal. You could make that the 5th element and associate it with ether if you want to, and later on we'll want to. You can make a pentagram out of each of these if you want to, and later we'll want to. But what I want you to look at now is simply that this is broken down into elementatas. No one's ever told you that before, because I'm the first person to tell you that. Okay, so this is the air tablet. Here is air of air, water of air, earth of air, fire of air. If you do Enochian magic at all, you should know those things. And maybe you've wondered, why do we have air of air in all of this? It's an idea that Dee gets from the 12th century. That is part of how he does things in the Hieroglyphic Monad, and it's predictable that it shows up in Enochian work. But wait, there's more. Let's put the ether back in there. We saw how we had all of this. If we have the ether or spirit, let's call it that, because Dee is a Neoplatonist and a Hermeticist after all, so we're going to just call the ether spirit, what binds everything. So then you're going to get air of spirit, fire of spirit, water of spirit, earth of spirit. So you can link that to advanced material in Enochian magic if you want to, like different types of pentagrams. But what I want to point out here is it's the solution to a puzzle of whether a significant part of the Enochian corpus is an accident caused by a transcription error in Casaubon. Now, I have a link to an article that my husband and I wrote about that and many other things with the Great Table of Earth more than 10 years ago. But the idea was that Enochian magicians use this thing, the Tablet of Union. And some people have since argued that when Merritt Casaubon was transcribing things from John Dee's spirit diaries, that he just kind of messed up and emphasized a tablet of union, which was not a thing that Dee had ever thought about. Well, that's just wrong. Dee would have thought about it, and you can see way back by his use of the word elementata in the Hieroglyphic Monad. So what is this, by the way, those of you who do Enochian magic? Well, you know, of course, this is spirit of air, spirit of water, spirit of earth, spirit of fire. Okay, you heard it here first. Back with more fun wordplay in the Hieroglyphic Monad in my next video. Have a great day, y'all.